It's the Pikachu Project.
Hello and welcome to the Pikachu Project, a spoiler-filled re-ranking of all 22 Pokemon movies. We are your two expert hosts. My name is Gigi, and I have seen every episode of the Pokemon anime.
And I am Walex, who is a doctor and a big Pikachu fan.
So, to recap once again, back in 2015, we watched all the Pokemon movies that were out at the time. We continued watching them as they came out, and we had a big list ranking them in different tiers in terms of quality. We decided, since we have a lot of free time right now, since everyone is sheltering in place, to rewatch them in rank order from worst to best and see if we want to make any changes to our lists. This is only the Pikachu Project movies, so it doesn't include Detective Pikachu or any of the shorts or any of the special episodes. So let's recap our list so far. So, as of now, both of us have a very bottom tier with only one movie in it, Pokemon Ranger and the Temple of the Sea. One tier up from bottom to top, we have Pokemon the movie 2000, The Power of One. Above that, we have Genesect and the Legend Awakened. I remembered it. Above that, we have Pokemon Heroes Latios and Latias. Above that, we have
Hoopa and the Clash of Ages.
Right, Hoopa and the Clash of Ages. Above that, we have Pokemon White, Victini, and Zekrom, right? Okay. Then we jump up one tier again. And at the bottom of my tier, we have The Rise of Darkrai, followed by Arceus and the Jewel of Life. In Walex's, we have Arceus and the Jewel of Life, followed by The Rise of Darkrai. Above that, we both have
Pokemon Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice.
Yes, Kyurem versus the Sword of Justice. Above that, we have Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. Above that, we have Pokemon Forever. I think there's a subtitle with Celebi in it, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Above that, we have Giratina and the Sky Warrior. Above that, we jump up one more tier. In my tier, we have at the bottom Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel. And above that, the 3D remake of the first movie, Pokemon Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. Above that, we have Zoroark Master of Illusions. Above that, we have Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. And above that, we have Pokemon I Choose You. Walex's tier, that tier, starts at the bottom with the 3D Mewtwo remake. Above that is Zoroark Master of Illusions. Above that is Volcanion and the Mechanical Marvel. Above that, Lucario and the Mystery of Mew. And above that, Pokemon I Choose You.
So those are actually the same list, except Volcanion jumps up 2 spots, basically.
Yes. And then we have one more tier above that. And the only movie in that tier, as of now, is Pokemon The Power of Us. Correct?
Yep.
All right. So we watched three movies this time. We will try to summarize them as quickly as we can. And we will let you know how they went. The first movie we watched was Pokemon 3, the movie, Spell of the Unown, Entei.
Whoa, that's a long name.
Yeah.
So this is the third Pokemon movie to come out, and one that a lot of Pokemon fans will remember fondly. Mm-hmm. So basically, it starts off with a father and daughter in the Johto town of Greenfield, where the father, who is actually a researcher, is reading a story about Entei to his daughter, and
from a book of legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, and says, "This one is unknown, and that one's the one I'm looking at a lot, and this is Entei." Or she's like, "Oh, this is Entei," and he's like, "Haha, this
you like
is
Entei." And she says, "Yeah, Entei's like you, Dad. He's strong and cool," basically.
And he says, "Well, then I am Entei."
And they start playing around
like Entei. And then suddenly he gets an email, and he goes over, much to her disappointment, and in the email message, he reads that, "Oh, there's some new breakthrough," and says, "I have to leave Molly," who's the daughter's name, and he takes off. So he goes to these desert ruins where everybody says, "Oh, Professor or Researcher Spencer Hale, Dr. Hale, you've got to see this." And they see
They see these unknown tiles with the letters of unknown on it, and he kind of discovers them and looks at them, and all of a sudden they start kind of floating around in the air, and he gets sucked into like a warp sort of thing,
and vanishes, and the unknown tiles scatter on the ground.
Yeah. So his research buddy returns and is talking to their butler at the mansion that they live in Greenfield. It's basically sharing, like, he is gone. We don't know what happened. Molly, the little girl, runs in and says, I saw the car. Daddy, are you back? And she's like, where's Daddy? So she's very upset when they tell her what happened. Then we see her playing with the unknown tiles, and she makes the words Papa, Mama, and me. But they begin to glow. A portal opens up, and everything is like spinning, like there's all this crazy like unknown stuff happening, and
suddenly the entire house starts getting sorry, the cat is attacking some papers on the table.
Go down.
Okay. And the house starts being enveloped by
this blue
crystals, and the butler and everybody rush into the room to see her surrounded by unknown, and the door shuts and crystallizes over, and they all have to flee the mansion, which is completely covered in blue crystals and becoming this crystal castle, Frozen style.
So she's alone in this crystal castle, and she sees the book with Entei, and she says, "Oh, I miss my dad." And so the unknown create an Entei who says, and she says, "Papa, is that you?" And she says, "If you wish, I am your father."
Yeah.
Then it cuts away to Brock, Misty, and Ash wandering around. They run into a trainer named Lisa, and they have a little battle during a remix of what I would say is the best English Pokemon intro song, the Johto song, which is super fun. And then they all go to the Pokemon Center. Oh, they all head to Greenfield.
Yeah.
Because Lisa says it's nearby. Misty says, yes, it's supposed to be beautiful. Everyone's heard of Greenfield. Everyone wants to go there. And when they arrive, they look out over the hill, and they see it's all covered in these blue-purple crystals spreading out from the mansion.
And consuming the countryside slowly and steadily.
Yeah. And Team Rocket is there, and they also observe what is going on. So there's a TV news crew who comes out, and they say, hey, weird things are happening in Greenfield. Professor Hale has disappeared. We also see Ash's mom, Delia Ketchum, and Mr. Mime watching the news. Delia sees, looks at pictures on her fridge that have Professor Oak, herself, Ash as a kid, and the Hale family. So they actually know each other. Professor Oak is also watching the news report. Delia shows up and says... and Professor they decide...
She says, Professor Oak, do you see what's happening on the news?
Yeah.
And Professor Oak says, yes, I'm going. I need to go help out. And she says, I'm coming too. And they basically both head off towards Greenfield.
So, back at the Pokemon Center, Ash and friends are surprised to see Professor Oak and Delia Ketchum, not Tracy, come out of a car as the kind of backup. Then... Ash and his mom are kind of like reuniting and saying hi to each other. Molly's observing them through the TV because she's watching what's going on the TV too. And she is sad because she doesn't have a mom either. And she says, I want a mom too. And Entei says, okay.
And basically, Entei bursts out of the castle, starts sprinting towards them as Ash and friends are sitting at a cafe trying to figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And Entei busts out. Pikachu tries to attack Entei, but Entei manages to grab Delia.
Puts her under like a little bit of a hypnosis.
Yeah.
And then grabs Delia on his back and runs back.
So Pikachu's caught on Entei. Ash is chasing them, but then Pikachu falls off, is unable to stop Entei. Entei returns to the tower, and Pikachu and Ash are there.
And Ash is really frustrated because his mom got kidnapped. So back at the mansion, Entei says, here's a mom. And Delia wakes up.
Still under this kind of spell, and... she says, okay, hello, and Molly's delighted.
Molly says, Mama, and she's like, okay, I'm your mom now.
And so...
and the crystals, meanwhile, are still spreading.
Right.
It's spreading.
there's kind of a cutaway where in the Charcific Valley, the Charizard, that Ash's Charizard is noticing footage of Ash and trying to run after Delia, and how Ash failed to save her mom.
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
there's a bulldozer that's trying to break through the crystals, but Molly says she wants them to go away, and the Unown / Entei create more crystals and make the bulldozer crash, and the driver escapes. Professor Oak then receives an email from Molly saying, "I'm with my mom and dad. Everyone should go away," which is confusing to him because obviously she doesn't have a mom and dad right now.
Oak is aware that her mom has been long gone and Professor Hale has been missing.
Yeah. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. Ash decides that he has got to go rescue his mom. Misty and Brock say, "We're going to come with you." And Lisa, the trainer from the beginning, says, "Okay, take my Pokegear so that you can be in contact if you need to. I'm not going to tell Professor Oak where you're going because I think you should go."
So they sneak out in the middle of the night and they're headed towards the castle. Team Rocket tries to go into the castle too because I think they want to catch Entei.
Yeah.
But Entei blasts their balloon, causing it to crash into the side of the castle. And so they're inside, but kind of stuck.
And they have to try to climb up and out.
Ash, Misty, and Brock are now using their Pokemon and getting into the castle. At some point, Professor Oak calls him on the Pokegear, I think, and says, "What do you think you're doing? You should have told me that you were going."
And Lisa says he's going after his mother.
And so Ash is using all of his Pokemon to get into the castle, but is eventually stopped at this kind of flight of stairs.
Because Molly sees Ash on the TV, and Molly says, "Hey, who are those guys?" Seeing Ash also breaks Delia, his mom, out of her spell. But she is playing coy, and she pretends to still be under the spell to kind of suss out the situation.
So Molly sees Ash on the TV and says, "Whoa, those are Pokemon trainers. So cool. I want to be a Pokemon trainer too." And Entei says, "You can do whatever you wish." And basically Molly jumps on Entei's back and goes down the castle, but not really because Molly actually goes to sleep and then reappears in a dream form on Entei's back and goes down to the castle to meet Ash, Misty, and Brock, who spot her. And I think Ash recognizes her, and they say...
No, Ash doesn't recognize her. Brock figures out, because she's in an older form, because she thinks you need to be older in order to be a Pokemon trainer. So they're like, "Who's that girl?" And Brock figures out that it's Molly, and that she's imagining that she's older, because this is her dream world. Also, at this point, they have the researcher back at Oak's lab has explained to them that the way that this is happening is that Unown can read the thoughts of living creatures, including people, and create alternate realities. So that's how this is all happening.
Basically, Brock, Molly challenges them to a Pokemon battle. Ash jumps forward, but then Brock says, "No, you should go on ahead, and I'll keep her busy." And so Brock says, "Would you like to battle with the gym leader?" And brings out his Zubat, and they have a Pokemon battle. They have a battle
while Misty and Ash continue running through. On this level, they were in this big, beautiful field area. Team Rocket also kind of joins up with them, but they're kind of shortly behind Ash and Misty at this point.
And so you see them battling, and Brock says, "You're pretty good," and she's really loving...
With her imagined Pokemon that are all really small Pokemon that are completely overpowered.
Yeah, like very powerful Teddiursa and Phanpy, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And she manages to beat Brock, and as Ash and Misty are continuing up the stairs. So Ash and Misty arrive in this kind of, I think it's like a beach area.
Yeah.
Right. And they're about to continue, but then Molly reappears there, kind of teleports there. And I think at some point... Oh, yeah, she sees Misty, who says, I used to be the Cerulean City gym leader. Would you like to battle with me? While Misty says, "Ash, you have to keep on going on ahead." And Molly says, "Oh, you don't have to be an adult to be a gym leader? That's so cool." And returns to her child form.
Well, she's kind of in the middle.
Yeah,
she's like Misty's age now.
Yeah. Like, it changes into a different form and decides to have a battle with her. And so she floods the entire...
because she's only going to use water types, because Misty is only going to use water types.
Right. So she floods the entire beach
and they're
into
underwater.
Being an underwater area. as they have a water type battle. Misty and Ash are surprised to find that they can still breathe underwater. As Misty and Molly gear up for a battle, Ash sort of runs, jumps, swims up to the next level, while Team Rocket is continuing to swim by, wondering if they're going to have a bigger role in the next movie. And so Misty and Molly then have a battle, which Molly's water type Pokemon are also imagined Pokemon and very, very powerful. And managed to defeat Misty after some time.
Actually, we don't know.
It's kind of like implied,
she
but like
probably defeats Misty.
They don't really.
But but during that time, Ash finally reaches his mom, and he says, "Entei brought you here, and the Unown are creating this from Molly's imagination, and we need to leave." Delia wakes Molly up and explains to her that I'm actually Ash's mother. We all knew each other. Do you remember? Ash says, "Do you remember playing together when we were little?" And we need to go. She's trying to get her to understand that they need to go. That this is not like safe or healthy situation. But Molly refuses, and more crystal pillars appear in Molly's room, separating all of them because Molly's trying to hide from them. Ash tries to get his mom out of there at least, but Entei shows up. And Molly says, "Ash is trying to take my mother." So Entei makes a barrier to separate Ash and Delia. So they're all kind of caught in these crystal pillars.
And Ash decides, I got to battle Entei in order to free my mom. And so brings out Totodile, brings out Pikachu, and they all start fighting. But none of the Pokemon are really effective against Entei. Entei's very powerful. And in the meantime, Delia's trying to go through these crystals and tell Molly, you have to stop this. This isn't,
Yeah, they're trying to convince Molly and Entei that this is an illusion. And that this is, Molly needs to not, that's not her father. And that she needs to kind of make this stop. But Molly keeps refusing and refusing.
And then Entei finally fires a fire blast at Pikachu. Ash jumps to protect him, and they both erupt out of the side of the castle,
and they're falling
into the spiky castle below. But
when
suddenly Charizard flies in after a long trek from the Charcific Valley, presumably, and saves them. And Ash jumps on Charizard's back and flies all the way back up to the room. And now Ash, newly confident, explains that my Pokemon and I work together like a family.
Entei says, "I will destroy that family then." And he keeps saying if it is what Molly wishes, as when Molly wishes.
Right. And so Entei and Charizard have this huge battle that goes out to the outside and back inside.
And during this whole time, they're trying to convince Molly, you have to think about your real mother and your real father. This isn't this isn't real. You can have real Pokemon out in the real world. You can have real friends. But she's blocking and blocking and blocking them, both physically and emotionally.
Yeah, there's this one moment where Ash is about to fall off or something, and then even Team Rocket helps make sure that he doesn't fall off. Brock and Misty make it back up there too. And then eventually, after all of this fighting, Charizard is smashed through the roof of the castle and lands on the ground. Entei lands on Charizard and puts his big paw on Charizard's neck and says, "I will end this," and is about to ready a big blast when suddenly
Molly says, "Stop." And so Entei, of course, pulls back. Brock and Misty say, "That's great. You're already a great Pokemon trainer. You know exactly when to stop a battle. That's an important part of being a Pokemon trainer." They explain to her that it's better out in the real world. The battles are tough, but the friends are real. And everyone loves Pokemon. Delia says, going back to the real world is what your father would want you to do. So Molly decides, okay, yeah, everything can be real again. So all of the crystals just start to disappear. Her fake Pokemon start to disappear. Entei says, yes, this was created by the Unown. I am an illusion. But since you want things to be real again, I have to go.
And so they're all happy when suddenly a bunch more crystal spikes emerge. They notice that the crystals are continuing to spread around, and they discover that the Unown have been using their psychic powers for so long that they've
lost control of it.
Yeah.
Is what Professor Oak says on the phone. They have to evacuate because the crystals are now spreading a lot. So they have to evacuate the Pokemon Center way back there.
And Ash and friends try to rush towards where the Unown are to try to stop them. they get to the Unown and they attempt to attack them, but they're being blocked by a barrier.
Yeah, a barrier around the Unown. And Charizard and Pikachu are trying to attack it, but it forces them back. Finally, Entei comes back and creates a pathway uses its, unknown power. Because it says that, Molly, you need to believe that I can, because I'm created from your imagination. If you believe that I can break through this barrier, then I can do it. So she believes in Entei, and Entei breaks through the barrier. And it says
the Unown to basically kind of like disperse, and a green light shines through, and Entei says, I must go now. But, I will always remain in your dreams if you wish it, basically.
So everything's disappearing, and eventually we see the Unown letter tiles fall to the ground again. The Unown disappear into the portal.
And you also see a cutaway where the portal in the ruins is reopened, and Professor Hale kind of gets spit out of that portal and is okay as well.
Yeah.
And so
they go outside of the mansion. They see how beautiful Greenfield really is. The police cars and everyone in the Pokemon Center come back. Team Rocket says, "Oh no, we can't leave because there's police." So they're still in the mansion. And that's about it.
Yep.
They're all back in the real world. All right, that was a short one.
Yeah.
That was nice. Okay. So.
Got a simpler structure than some of the other movies.
So our experience watching the movie the first time, where we had it ranked before. First time we had it ranked at the very top of the second tier. It was above The Power of Us, above everything else in that tier. I think what I remember last time is, thinking it was really unique for a Pokemon movie. Thinking I really liked the aesthetics. I remembered, I thought it was really unique in that it dealt with kind of a specific person having emotional turmoil and kind of a lot of kind of symbolic, abstract representations of that. And I really appreciated that Delia Ketchum was in the movie and relevant and
really
had
loved
agency.
Her role.
And that was very exciting to me too. I think those were the big parts of it for me. And also I remember we loved that intro where they battled Lisa. With the remix over the top. Those were the main things for me.
Yeah. I pretty much the same. I think the intro Pokemon battles among the best in any of the Pokemon movies. It's very fun. I thought that the role of Brock and Misty were really interesting too in the original, when we first watched it, where they kind of bought Ash some time, but also, talked to Molly in a certain way. And, I thought it was a strong movie. I think that maybe I guess I didn't quite promote it to the top tier because
me neither.
It didn't quite make me feel as strongly as the other ones. It maybe felt a little limited in scope compared to some of the other ones.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite feel like it was in the same league as the other movies in the top tier.
Yeah. There's a lot of silly 4Kids lines, which is a positive or negative, but, they are what they are.
We'd be out of show business.
So watching it again, I'll just go up front and say that in between the time that we watched this movie first and we watched it again this time, back in partially because of the reasons you could think of and partially because of other reasons, in the winter of 2016, I had a really rough bout with depression and anxiety that took a lot of therapy to kind of overcome. I pulled out of school, I moved home, I was in the worst emotional place I've ever been in my entire life. So watching this movie again after that experience, and especially after going through therapy and kind of hearing certain messages over and over again, this movie felt a lot more powerful to me. Especially the messages that Delia and Ash a lot of the time were trying to show Molly, and the way that she was putting up her barriers against them. The idea that, in order to deal with these things, you have to face them, even though it's going to be hard. You withdrawing back into your, crystalline structure might feel easier and safer, but it's actually going to hurt you more in the long run. So that was I thought that the symbology in this movie was really powerful, and I think on point for my experience, in terms of the way that during that time I really withdrew into, things that I found safe, and the way that turned me into someone who was avoiding a lot of things in the real world, and avoiding the way that Molly's avoiding everything in this movie. So it really hit me a lot in the gut, a lot more this time around.
My opinion didn't really quite change in that way, but I did feel that I could respect the ambition of what they were trying to get across a lot more this time around.
I wonder if part of that also is, again, because the first time we watched them in release order.
Yeah.
This time we watched them in rank order, and I think watching them in rank order, to me at least, makes this movie stand out a little bit more.
Definitely.
Because you look at the movies kind of in the middle, towards the bottom of the list, and a lot of them have that same kind of, there's a legendary Pokemon, there's someone with a God, what's the word?
Airship.
For some reason I keep forgetting this word we're constantly using. There's someone with an airship who wants to capture the legendary Pokemon, and Ash and friends help the legendary Pokemon do some ancient ritual or something.
Yeah.
And I think after watching a bunch of those in a row, I think to me this stands out a lot more as something that is really more about a child's emotional journey, more so than anything else. And also the way that it involves pretty much only characters from the anime that you're already familiar with.
Right.
I think is another unique thing about it.
I think the last time I watched it, I didn't give it enough credit for all of those things, when it seemed a little bit, I don't know, I guess I thought it was kind of I focused more on its strengths as kind of like a structurally kind of like well put together movie, rather than thinking about its ambition in terms of the themes. I was like, oh, it's fun. It's kind of like a Bruce Lee Game of Death thing, where they're going up a tower and then they're like battling people at different levels and stuff, and then they have the set piece Entei versus Charizard at the end. And I kind of thought about that a little bit more,
which is also true. I mean,
right, it's true.
That's part of the structure for sure.
But Gigi brought up some good points about how each of the battles form a different element of people breaking through and getting to Molly in some ways, like having a conversation with her. That doesn't always work, especially since she just happily destroys Misty and Brock's Pokemon and doesn't really entirely change her mind through that. But there's little kind of like beams, like rays of light that kind of like crack through in some ways on her way up.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's all, like, to kind of go completely left turn, I think another charming part about this movie, to us at least, is the like really dumb 4Kids Team Rocket lines.
Yeah.
There's a lot of classic lines in this movie. Yeah. Like the last time I saw these many strange letters, it was when I placed that personal ad.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and all their line about, having a bigger part in the next movie. And when they saved Ash asked, like, hey, why did you save me? You're bad guys.
Yeah.
And they were like,
well, if something was to happen to you, so we'd be out of show business.
Yeah, it's like very constantly fourth wall breaking, very stupid.
Yeah.
But we have a little bit of love in our hearts for that.
Yeah. It's better in this movie than in a lot of other movies.
Yeah. I mean, I once again really appreciate Delia Ketchum being an interesting and relevant character. Yeah. And the other part of that I think I didn't emphasize as much the first time we watched it was the way that we get to see her care for Ash and Ash care for her.
Yeah.
Which we don't see a lot. And we also get kind of a glimpse into Ash's life before episode 1 of the anime.
Right.
Where he's like, his mom's like, oh, see this picture of us all spending time together? Like, because Spencer and Delia were both students at the same time under Professor Oak.
I don't think Delia was a student, was she? But like a family friend?
I think so.
I thought, because she said Spencer wasn't he one of your best students?
Yeah. And then she just like lived in town, so they like knew each other. I think that's what it was. And she asks Ash, like, don't you remember spending time together? And he's like, she's like, it was a few years ago, and he's like, not really, because he's 10 and he doesn't remember what he did when he was 7.
Yeah.
And he even asked Molly, don't you remember playing together?
Right.
And yeah, I think another thing, before I completely forget, that I want to mention is in the credits, we also see Molly, first of all, have a real Teddy Ursa, and then be reunited with not only her father, but her mother.
Yeah.
Who shows up again, which we assume her disappearance also had something to do with the unknown.
Right, and when you think more about the mom disappearing, you can think maybe maybe Spencer was so obsessed with the unknown because he thought that might be a way to get her back, for example.
Yeah. And to be fair, and it's not spelled out that way in the credits. Like her dad kind of introduces a woman in a hat, but then the way that she runs to her with familiarity makes us think it's not like her new mom, it's like the mom she knew.
Right. Bulbapedia says it's her mother.
Okay.
So
so yeah. So there's that too, which I mean, this is maybe a little too harsh of a critique, but I think the message of, be in the real world and push past your anxieties is a stronger of a message if she doesn't then get rewarded with having both of her parents back. Because that's not really the reward. If the reward is not that everything gets fixed. Yeah. The reward is that you are a stronger and more, I hate to use this word, but sane person.
And, like that's post-credit stuff. And so, the decision to put not only the mom in the credits, but the dad also does not return during the course of the actual movie.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
A clear
She's
intention.
She's reached her kind of the end of her arc.
Yeah.
Before she even knows her dad is coming back.
Right. So the movie ends with her reuniting with the butler
That's a good point.
And the other friends.
And kind of bravely facing the world.
Yeah, so I think that the intention is very strong, but it's a Pokemon movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
They're not going
to
not
uber happy ending.
Yeah. Have them come back, so.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else to say?
No, not really.
Yeah. I think this is a really unique movie. Amongst the rest of them.
Yeah.
So, re-ranking it, I decided very quickly that it belonged to tier up. And so, the first movie in what will probably be our top tier is the Entei movie. I was very comfortable doing that right away. I thought it really, again, like I think just because of my experiences during recent years, it became a more powerful movie to me, I think is a big part of that. And probably rewatching the movies in a different order, I think maybe kind of emphasized its uniqueness. So I definitely felt that it belonged a tier above. What about you?
Yeah, I also put it a tier above. Did you want to speak to why it was or was not better than Power of Us?
Oh, right. I forgot that Power of Us was already in that. Because we already have this everything written out, so I forget which movies we have or haven't seen. Sorry, Power of Us is already in that tier. We both had it under the Power of Us.
Yeah, but...
I think the Power of Us is just... I don't know. I think once you're up here, a lot of it is just that, like, je ne sais quoi. I think what it came down to was I'm going to spend more time thinking about the characters in the Power of Us than I am going to spend time thinking about, Molly and this movie that really just has like one kind of message and one kind of journey to take away with. A very powerful one. Mm-hmm. But the Power of Us has like a lot of powerful journeys to take away. So I think it kind of it packs more in a really effective way, maybe is the best way to put it for me in this moment.
Okay.
What about you?
For me, I thought that, so I put Entei in the top tier as well, in the same place right under the Power of Us, because I think I need to respect its ambition a little bit more, and the fact that this message can carry to a lot of different people. I think that if someone were to come away telling me that Entei movie is still their favorite top tier movie, I would not think that it's a terrible idea. Whereas the second tier, I would, maybe question whether or not they... had thought about different movies if they considered, I don't know, let's say like Lucario their favorite movie. I would say, have you seen the Entei movie, for example? So I feel more comfortable about it being in the top tier because I can imagine a world in which that is somebody's favorite movie for a lot of different reasons. It won't be mine though, and it isn't at the bottom of the top tier because it's very focused. It's a little gloomy. It's very gloomy. It's very gloomy, and there's a lot of battling that I don't know, kind of bores me in a weird way because I don't usually get bored by battles, but it's a 3-on-3 with Misty and Brock, and then Entei fights Charizard for a long time, and that goes on. And sure, there's story relations to why it should be that long, and I don't think that there's any wrong decisions, but for me it is so focused. It's so kind of thinking about this one kind of arc that you need to be in a certain space and time in order to really enjoy this movie all the time. Yeah. And for me, it is definitely has to be up there, but it won't be my favorite, I guess. Yeah. The Power of Us, it's beautiful, it's bright, and this is maybe a fair or unfair commentary. I like movies with a lot of cute Pokemon playing around. Entei movie has almost no cute Pokemon playing around.
It has the intro.
Yeah, it has a brilliant intro. Yeah. The Chikorita's eating food. It's really cute.
If we rank intros, this has a strong competition to be the first spot. It's really good.
Yeah, they do a 6-on-6 battle, I think.
It's long, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, and they go 2 and 3 and 2 and 2, and then they tie on the last one. I don't really know how. I think so.
Maybe it's 5-on-5.
5-on-5, yeah. And then the Wooper and Pikachu do a headbutt. It's really cute.
Timed with the music, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Maybe we should rank the intros also.
Yeah. Well, bonus episode. Yeah. But other than that, it's hyper focused on a few Pokemon.
Yeah, and mostly on people. That's the thing. I think more so than any other Pokemon movie we watched so far, this movie is heavily focused on people and not Pokemon. Yeah. Yeah.
So for me personally, I love cute Pokemon. The Power of Us has a lot of cute Pokemon, a great message with Pokemon and people, and they're all together, and it's just immaculate. It's so directed. It's got so much kinetic energy. Yeah. It's hard for me to...
I agree with everything you're saying.
Put the Entei movie up to that standard.
Yeah, same here. All right. Let's move on to our next movie. The next movie we watched was Pokemon Destiny Deoxys. Well, Alex is already grinning.
Yeah. So Destiny Deoxys, even though it was third place for both of us initially, I always said is possibly the best one for somebody who does not like Pokemon. But let's
get into the plot, and we can talk about that afterwards.
So at the start of the movie, you see a bunch of this professor person.
There's some researchers in the polar area.
Right. I forgot what his name is.
I don't remember either. We'll figure it out.
His assistant, friend, not wife, presumably.
Assistant, it seems like. Research assistant.
Named Yuko. So he and Yuko are there doing some research, and his young son is playing with some Spheal and Walrein and being really happy. Yeah. When suddenly a meteor crashes down.
Near the Pokemon, and they start rampaging basically towards the little boy, and you see from his perspective them rampaging towards him, and he kind of closes his eyes. He's really freaked out.
Feels like he's going to die 100%. Yeah. But then his dad and Yuko manage to go scoop him up and keep him safe. But then from out of the meteor, a Deoxys emerges, and that Deoxys is holding a green sphere that's part of a chunk of the other meteorite, and kind of looking like he's very intent on this sphere somehow. Yeah. Meanwhile, though, a Rayquaza comes out of the sky, and the researcher says he's furious that his territory has been invaded by somebody. And that Rayquaza and Deoxys start fighting in this really, really dramatic battle. It looks like Deoxys is going to win because he blasts Rayquaza into the ocean, but the Rayquaza jumps out of the ocean and point blank fires a mouth laser, hyper beam, straight into Deoxys, which causes Deoxys to completely poof Steven Universe style back into
Yeah.
a purple sphere, which sinks into the bottom of the ocean. And then meanwhile, the researchers take the green sphere that Deoxys was looking at and take it away in a helicopter away from there.
Yeah.
And then it says 4 years later.
And we see the young boy from the beginning of the movie kind of alone in this garden area. And he's looking around. He says, "Where are you? Where are you?" Cut to elsewhere in that same building, we see the researchers with the green crystal gem gem, let's just say it, with the green gem in the meteorite in like a glass case, and they're doing research. They're firing lasers at it. They're trying to, and it kind of pulsate glows, but it doesn't really do anything else. Cut to up in the Arctic or Antarctica or wherever it is. We see a Deoxys. I don't know. We see a Deoxys burst out of the ice. The Deoxys burst out of the ice, and fly
into the sky and make a big aurora, I think.
Yeah.
A big purple aurora.
Yeah.
Cut away to Ash Ketchum, May, and Max, who are excitedly heading to La Rousse City, the center of all things tech.
Yeah.
So he's he's running into the city, and then we cut away to a Plusle and Minun that are playing with a trash can. And
Very high-tech trash can.
Yeah, and then Munchlax comes up and picks up their litter after them and does a kick and doesn't manage to land it in the trash can.
And goes, lax.
And then we cut back to Ash, who meets a security robot.
And it says, "We're going to take your pictures." And it takes pictures of everyone and gives them passports. May gets a very bad picture because she is surprised.
They get on some moving sidewalk.
But Ash is running the opposite way on a moving sidewalk. These group of people, youth and teens pass by, and they say, "There's an easier way, And one of them gets his Blaziken to go and pick up Ash and move him to the right side of the moving platform.
So they're all headed towards this battle tower because they're talking about the great tournament that's happening. They are Rafe, who's like this kind of like cool guy with the Blaziken. Sid,
his twin sisters, Audrey and Catherine.
Sid, who's this like boisterous guy, and Rebecca, who's like this nerd girl with a laptop.
So they arrive at the battle tower. Ash arrives and he sees the young boy that we saw at the beginning multiple times.
Whose name is Tori at some point we discover.
Yeah. So Ash and Pikachu go towards him and they say, "Hey, how do I because he got lost and he found the library."
Right.
And he sees this boy and he says, "Hey, I need to get to the, battle tower entrance." The boy's running away from him and he and Pikachu are running after saying, "Hey, like, where are you going? Where are you going?" They get in an elevator. The elevator opens and this guy says, "Great, you're entering the battle competition." Ash says, "Yes, we're here." And the kid's like, "Wait, what?" And they basically get pushed out onto the stage. We see Rebecca show up afterwards and be upset because apparently they were the last people who got to enter into the competition, but they're somehow first to go. And they go out and they're up against
Ash and
Sid and Raph. Ash and Tori are up against Sid and Raph in this giant stadium. And they send out, what do they have, a Blastoise and a Blaziken?
Yeah.
Right? And so Ash says, "All right, I'm going to use Pikachu." And he's like, "What are you going to use, Tori?" And Tori's like, "I was trying to tell you, I'm not a Pokemon trainer. I don't have Pokemon. I don't know what I'm doing here." And
Ash says, "You can borrow one of my Pokemon," and gives him Torkoal. And then they have, so Tori has Torkoal, but literally cannot declare any attacks and knows nothing about Pokemon battling. And they have this really comical battle in which Pikachu and Torkoal are fumbling over each other, and Ash says, "Let me take over," and just starts calling attacks for both of them, and Tori's just being scared and embarrassed. And then they lose.
Yes, they lose. So
they leave. Tori's dad and Yuko notice Tori on the TV and rush to give him a hug, saying, "We're so proud of you. We didn't know that you were a Pokemon battling." And he says, "No, that's what I was trying to tell you. I'm not, I didn't want to do this. I came in by accident."
And he runs away.
Yeah.
So they explain, they're back, they bring Ash and friends, right, back to their research center house.
His dad, Professor something, I wish I had his name.
Yuko explains to them 4 years ago, we were on this, polar mission, research mission, and Tori basically got traumatized and is now completely scared of Pokemon. And Ash says, you know what? Then all he has to do is become friends with me and Pikachu. So let's go help him. And she's like, okay, thank you for trying.
Right. Meanwhile, Tori, who's run away in embarrassment, does notice a Plusle and a Minun who's in a fix because Minun is stuck in... His head is jammed in a garbage can again.
So Tori braves it and frees them, but... is still scared of them.
But it's still scared. The Plusle Minun want to thank him, but he runs away and goes to the garden that we saw him in before and sees this green little sprite and starts talking to it. It's kind
like
of this
diamond-shaped...
green, like, haze, almost.
Yeah, and he says, guess what? I helped a Pokemon out today.
Yeah.
And I had a Pokemon battle, although I didn't do very well.
Right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you cut away and find out that Deoxys, who burst out of the ice earlier, has reached LaRousse City and is standing on the building, creating this giant purple aurora.
Also Team Rocket has been here.
They tried to get some hamburgers and failed to do so. They are very hungry.
Yeah, and they get attacked by a security robot because they're trying to destroy the hamburger machine.
Right. And then Brock says, you know what's the best way to get everybody to be friends? A good meal. And so he kind of makes like a fondue thing, if I recall.
Fondue. Cheese fondue.
Yeah, and Tori actually comes along, and they're all actually having a good time. Ash says, Tori, try touching Pikachu. And he says, no, I can't. And then later on, Deoxys is continuing to be on top of buildings, creating auroras. And Tori comes back and says, oh, now I made you cookies because thank you for the meal. And
so then everyone, all the gang, all the teens and kids and stuff send out their Pokemon and they say, let's have a Pokemon party.
Yeah.
And all the Pokemon are dancing and playing together and everyone's having a great time. And Ash says, like maybe now you can touch Pikachu. But Corfish jumps in and scares Tori. And he once again is not able to touch Pikachu.
Meanwhile, nerd girl... what's her name? Rebecca it has her laptop out and is looking at the aurora that Deoxys made and says, this is wild. This isn't supposed to be happening. And everybody's kind of curious about that.
Yeah. At some point, Tori also introduces them to the green light. Yeah. I think at this point, Tori says, hey, let me introduce you to my friend. And he introduces them to this green diamond-shaped light that wiggles around and says, this is my friend. I don't know what it is, basically. And everyone's like, whoa, that's cool. Okay.
And also but then we cut away to the guy, the researcher guy, and Yuko in the kind of security center, and they notice that Rayquaza has come back out from the ozone layer and is in pursuit of... is coming to LaRousse City. They're not really sure why.
Yeah.
And they flip through some cameras and they found out, oh no, Deoxys is here. Yeah. That's why Rayquaza is coming. And so...
as a precaution, they decide we need to evacuate the city because if they have a battle, it could be completely disastrous.
Right.
So they issue an evacuation order to this very, very high-tech city. But Ash and Tori and everyone get trapped inside the garden building that they're in.
So Deoxys notices that Rayquaza has just about arrived, and just as Rayquaza is about to enter the city, Rayquaza hits this giant force field around the city, which is
that
presumably
Deoxys has created.
Yeah, created from by Deoxys, and that force field stops all of the wind turbines from going, which starts to cause some issues as well.
Yeah, there's no power in a lot of places now. The Deoxys is also kidnapping people and putting them in this big tube, in this big ball. I don't know. I'm not really sure what it is. A water tower
this
thing?
This building.
Yeah.
And so Ash and friends are in the...
It's doing this by creating copies of itself.
Right.
And they're flying all around the city, just picking people up and dropping them in this place.
Right. So Ash and friends are noticing all of these Deoxys trying to break into the garden, and they say, we got to get out of here. So they start running away, but I think Sid at some point gets captured by the Deoxys copies, and Ash and friends take a secret exit out of the garden and go into this kind of research bunker They do notice also that, well, actually, so they're in this research bunker. They're all scared when suddenly they notice that the kind of ventilation shaft
they're saying, can it get in through the walls? Well, I wonder if it can get in through the shaft, through the whatever. And then the ventilation shaft is shaking and shaking and shaking, and out pops Plusle and Minun and Munchlax, which they have to pull out.
Yeah, and earlier it's seen that Deoxys is also picking up Pokemon and taking them away too. And so now they're in this kind of like bunker, trying to stay away, but they're all starving.
Yeah.
So they
even though the Munchlax earlier ate all their sandwiches from their lunch.
Right. So they kind of form a like scavenging party. Ash, Brock, and someone else.
Tori, I think.
Tori. Go out and find a hamburger robot.
Or a hot dog robot.
Sorry, a hot dog robot.
That, of course, isn't working because there's no power.
Mm-hmm. They shock the hot dog robot to try to get it back to working.
So it starts shooting hot dogs out.
Mm-hmm. But then Deoxys shows up and they have to...
A bunch of Deoxys.
Yeah, a bunch of Deoxys copies show up and they have to run away. Though I think they do manage to get some hot dogs.
They get a few hot dogs, but one of the Deoxys picks up the machine and carries it away.
Yeah, and they manage to find some water too. And so now they're back in the bunker.
And they also kidnap Minun. The Deoxys also kidnap Minun.
Oh, yeah.
Plusle and Minun are with them too.
Yeah.
And Tori is really mad at himself that he didn't save Minun, and he still can't even touch Plusle.
Yeah, and so Plusle is sad. Everybody's in this bunker, but they do have food and water now for the time being.
Yeah. We also see the Deoxys who's carrying the hot dog machine. The hot dog machine eventually runs out of power and stops, and the Deoxys just drops it immediately.
And Rebecca inside the bunker sees like some footage of this and notices, hey, maybe they only care about things that have electricity right now. Like people have electricity in a way too. And so that's kind of a clue. And then they kind of go to sleep. Surskit starts panicking overnight, and then everybody wakes up like, what's going on with Surskit? And they notice that the Deoxys are starting to
come in through the walls and the shafts.
Like breaking open the barricades and trying to come into this bunker. And they decide that they have to continue running away.
They keep running, and they get to the underground laboratory where Yuko. And
they basically find the very laboratory where initially at the start of the movie they were working on the crystal.
And Yuko shows them the green gem crystal thing and explains that this they think is a second Deoxys who's trying to pull out. And they see on Tori's friend show up from the crystal.
Yeah.
And they figure out, oh my gosh, that is Deoxys.
Your friend was Deoxys this entire time.
And Rebecca translates their Aurora speech to show that the green one is saying friend, and the purple one, the one that's looking for it, is saying, where are you? So they figure out Deoxys is looking for its friend, and that's why it's picking up all of these things that have, life energy of some kind. Meanwhile, during all of this, Rayquaza has still been trying to attack the barrier to get into the city.
So now they decide that we got to get enough, we got to wake up this Deoxys, but they don't have any power because all of the wind turbines are out.
So they can't power the lasers to shoot at the Deoxys to wake it up.
They decide to split up and create power to recharge this machine. So some of them say, we've got it, we'll go create wind power. And Rafe says, if you need something about electricity, I'm your guy.
Yeah.
For some reason, that's not clear. And they also form a party to sort of rescue everybody from where they found everybody was captured, which is this big building, dome.
Yeah.
So they all basically split up. Rafe...
ends up getting kidnapped because he's fighting off some Deoxys. And eventually they get to the building where everyone's being held, including Rafe now because he was kidnapped.
Right.
And he is creating a plan where the Minun will help create electricity through a metal plate in the floor, it seems like.
Yeah, so Rafe is opening the door from the inside, and Ash and friends are waiting on the outside.
Yeah, but they have to use the electricity, Pokemon electricity, to open the door, to power the door to open, and they manage to open the door and free everybody.
Right. Meanwhile, then they go over to try to repower the windmills, and they do so by putting a lot of ropes, kind of attaching ropes to the wind turbines, and they start using Pokemon to just pull the windmills to start getting them turning. There's some friendly, just wild animal Pokemon, some like Pelipers and stuff that are also helping blow the wind turbines, and everybody's working together to get the power back on, and they're almost having enough to...
Meanwhile, I just want to say Rayquaza has broken through the barrier and is now chasing Deoxys, the main Deoxys.
Yeah. Even Team Rocket is helping a little pedal machine to get the power going for... They're probably not sure what they're doing, but they're all helping out now.
Yeah. So they've got the power going. They're back. Ash and Tori are back at the lab, and they tried to wake up the Deoxys, but they're still just short on enough power. So the Pikachu, the Plusle, and Minun that are with them shock the machine to give it a little bit extra power, and the stone comes out of the meteor, and Deoxys forms and crashes through the thing like Mewtwo.
Right. So a green sphere Deoxys. So it's got a green gem on the inside. Crashes out of the roof, and I think also takes Ash and Tori along with it. Yeah. And so now purple Deoxys and Rayquaza are fighting through the streets, crashing into everything, and suddenly I think Deoxys actually manages to get Rayquaza up against a wall and is about to fire a huge blast to blast Rayquaza when green Deoxys comes in and
protects Rayquaza,
blocks the attack. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now purple Deoxys is delighted to see green Deoxys. They both
make
float into the air and make auroras happen.
And Rayquaza is going to attack the Deoxys, but because of the overdrive power that the city now has, the security robots from before, which are made of these little blocks that form together, kind of go on overdrive and lose control. And they now are attacking Rayquaza, which is helpful, but they're kind of reproducing, it seems like, at an alarming rate. And so the city is being flooded with these security robot blocks.
Yeah, so there's blocks going through the streets, this huge tidal wave of blocks, and they all seem to be climbing up the battle tower.
Yeah, and Ash and Tori are kind of being carried along on this wave of blocks.
Mm-hmm. Tori's father appears on the TV screen and says, "Tori, you've got to be brave. I need you to do this. Take your ID card and tap the security chief robot.
Which is up in the air next to you."
Yeah. And then that'll give us enough time to call off the security alert.
Yeah.
And so Tori and Ash jump on the hot dog robot, which conveniently comes nearby. And then they notice, out of the bottom of the hot dog robot, Munchlax is there. Yeah. Munchlax gets swallowed up in a sea of blocks and then evolves into a Snorlax, which
helps Ash jump on the Snorlax and jump on the blocks to get up next to the security robot. Mm-hmm. And he takes out his ID, and he is about to present it, but he drops it. Pikachu jumps down from Ash's shoulder and tail whacks it way back up to him, but he misses it.
Yeah, well, no, I think... No. Tori misses it. Tori fails, he jumps down, and then Ash actually grabs the card and then successfully
But that's Tori's card. Ash drops his own card twice, and then Tori has to throw it up to him, and Ash manages to catch it.
No. When Tori throws... Ash drops his own card. Tori's card gets up to Ash, but he drops it. Or like Tori's card... When Tori throws it, it doesn't quite make it to Ash. So Pikachu jumps down, whacks the card up.
Yeah, you're right.
Ash grabs Tori's card and sticks it on the security robot.
And they power down the robots.
And so everything kind of comes back to...
crashing down.
Yeah, kind of comes crashing down. All of the robots kind of go gray.
Including Tori, Plusle, and Minun are up on top of a tower of robots. Plusle and Minun start to fall. And Tori... in an instant, reaches out and grabs them and falls with them. Mm-hmm. And they all get saved by Deoxys.
And then I think at some point, Deoxys saves Rayquaza or helps
and they're
free
chill
Rayquaza.
With each other now.
And Rayquaza goes arr, arr, I guess you're chill.
And leaves.
And then leaves. Yeah. And then the Deoxys are reunited, and then they go home as well.
Yeah, and then everyone leaves the city, and Tori now has the Plusle and Minun as his friends.
Yeah.
All right. So, this movie, the first time around, was ranked...
number 3 overall.
Yes.
On both of our lists.
It was number 4 on my list.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
Because I had Pokemon Forever up there.
Sorry, my mistake.
But it was essentially number 3. It was essentially number 3 on our lists. I just remember we thought it was a lot of fun. We thought it was a very kind of good, not generic in a bad way, but a kind of like understandable science fiction plot of like aliens come to Earth. Aliens are trying to find each other but are not being understood by humans, and kind of there's like a lot of misunderstanding and miscommunication.
Well, but the first time you watch it, we didn't know the twist. So we think that Deoxys is a bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
The whole time around. It seems like this alien, almost disaster movie.
Yeah.
Where he comes in, you have everybody hiding.
Us. Rayquaza's trying to protect everyone.
Right. And they're like, starving for food and water. And then you discover that, Deoxys was trying to get its friend.
Yeah.
And it was this like really crazy thing. I thought it was fantastic for being... at different moments, just like it's a cool action movie. It's like a horror movie in a way.
Yeah, there's moments where there's a moment where like Brock finds water, and you're like, oh my god, this is great. They have water now.
Right, and whenever Deoxys shows up with its Deoxys copies, there's this like scary noise with it.
This
like
great shot, and the Deoxys copies are very creepy in like an alien way. They're just kind of these like darker versions of Deoxys, and they're all just like wrapping people up in its arms, and it's very creepy.
So people are getting like taken away,
picked up off the streets
until it's a ghost town, God knows where. It's like this horror scene when their tentacles are coming in through the walls to get Ash. I was just like, wow, I didn't know that Pokemon movies would go this far in terms of being like legitimately terrifying, because at that point you don't know that everybody's okay.
And I also remember we loved the Munchlax.
Oh yeah, Munchlax,
especially when it evolved into Snorlax. If you don't see that coming, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, this podcast is just ruining all of these moments for everyone. But you know what? We say it's spoiler filled, so whatever.
Yeah, you're supposed to watch these movies before every episode. Yeah. So.
Yeah, maybe I should put the movies we watched in the episode descriptions.
We already talk about which movies in the previous episodes.
Yeah,
but
not at the beginning.
Yeah.
I should do that. I'll add that. Anyway.
So, right.
Yeah.
I thought it was
time?
fantastic. I thought that it was one of the most like movie-y movies that a Pokemon movie does.
We definitely thought, this if this is a list of just movies that anyone could watch without knowledge of Pokemon, was definitely our number one.
Yeah, because it doesn't have too much like nitty-gritty like gym badges or gym leaders or anything like that. It's just, a boy overcoming his fear of a Pokemon who, would become his, lifelong friend ultimately.
Yeah. While the city is attacked by an alien.
Yeah. Being fought by a local dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
All right. So our experience watching it again, I enjoyed it a lot. Again, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I think even without knowing the like quote twists, it's kind of thrilling to watch everybody trying to survive, banging at the hot dog machine, thinking we need food. Some of it's kind of like cheesy in a great early 2000s way, like her laptop and how she's like looking at like the auroras and she's like clicking translate on her laptop and it's like, this one says friend.
Yeah, that's really good.
The Munchlax and Plusle and Minun are adorable again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a great like alien attack movie.
Even if you know what the twists it's just a great movie. Everything.
It's your heart out, Arrival. Just kidding. Arrival's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. So much of what I was, I know this movie pretty well. I've watched it number of times at this point, and even though I know every scene, it's always a little better than I remember. And I think the Deoxys Rayquaza battle is probably the coolest battle in all of Pokemon and the movies. Like in terms of just coolness, like some of the shots in that battle are really, really dramatic.
Yeah.
I always enjoy the Munchlax Plusle and Minun. I think that the pacing is really good throughout the entire movie. And I always forget about the scene where everybody's coming together to power up the generator.
Yeah, me too. It's really great. It's a great scene.
Free the green Deoxys. Yeah.
Also, at the end, after the movie's done, you see Team Rocket still pedaling to try to fire up the power. It's really cute because they didn't get the memo.
And then you hit the credits song, which me and Gigi like a lot.
The credits is amazing. It's such a good song that for some reason you can't get on iTunes. It's called This Side of Paradise by Bree Sharp. It's really good.
Yeah.
And also the like second half of the credits is just like Pikachu and Plusle and Minun and all these Pokemon with like pom-poms dancing.
Yeah,
it's adorable.
It's adorable credit scene.
We're gonna rank the credits too, and like spoilers, this will probably be number 1.
We'll see, but yeah, probably.
It's really good. I think another cool thing about this movie that's very sci-fi-y is that, you know, it's this very high-tech city, and you kind of, for the second half of the movie, get to see like the high-tech stuff that's so helpful normally kind of like go haywire and become like a problem for them.
Right.
I don't think it's trying to send like any strong message about like
The
technology.
dangers of over-reliance on
But it's just kind of like interesting to watch how that stuff can backfire sometimes.
Yeah. So
where did we rank it this time around? I ranked it between The Power of Us and the Entei movie in the top tier. It's a great movie. It's a fun movie. On any given day, I'm kind of asking myself up here, on any given day, even if it was tomorrow, what movie would I watch? And Destiny Deoxys, I would definitely watch over the Entei movie, just because the Entei movie is a little intense. And The Power of Us is, as we said, really good.
Yeah.
So I think Destiny Deoxys fits very comfortably in the middle there for me. How about you?
For me, it is in the exact same place. I will say that The Power of Us and Destiny Deoxys, they're both very, very strong movies.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, I don't know. It's always hard to think, like, which movie would you gift to someone who had not seen neither of them? And I think they're both fantastic. Yeah. I really do think in this situation, one could say that they're kind of comparable quality. But for me personally, I'll give the edge to The Power of Us. It has just this vision of what Pokemon could be in a way. Yeah. Like it looks beyond, you know, a lot of things that we've seen in other movies and other anime, like other Pokemon, the rest of the Pokemon anime, and it just is just really fresh and really good. But Destiny Deoxys, it's excellent. It's super fun the whole time.
I think Destiny Deoxys and The Power of Us are great examples, like prime examples, platonic ideals of Pokemon then and Pokemon now. Maybe in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Since now Pokemon is obviously different. I
think it's about like having one Pokemon partner and like
I would say post Pokemon Go, Pokemon's different.
Yeah.
In its branding and in a lot of things.
Yeah. And as far as being better than the Entei movie on my list, I mean, for me, I think Entei movie can mean more to somebody in a certain time. Like Destiny Deoxys doesn't have like a really deep message.
It's not going to make you cry.
Basically about exposure therapy.
It's like a fun sci-fi movie.
Yeah, it was always the blockbuster of the top tier for me. It was the
summer blockbuster.
Yeah, the easily digestible. Like it's a little scary. It's really fun. It's got all of the makings of a summer blockbuster Pocket Monsters
movie.
Yeah, basically. And so for me, like that just has a great universal appeal that and it's not emotional in some ways, so it's not as emotional and not as involved.
It's not
going
to make you cry.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably.
And The Power of Us will be your summer blockbuster that makes you cry.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way of summing it up. All right, we have one more movie this week, and that movie is Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back.
Mewtwo versus Mew.
I think once again, the unofficial subtitle that was on the poster. All right. So again, I think this summary should be pretty quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
We
open with like kind of some visions under a lake and some bubbles. And I think the narrator gives a monologue about life, and the nature of life is a mystery. And
then we see some researchers outside of this test tube that it's in, shaking hands and saying, "We did it." And what obviously is Mewtwo breaks the test tube. It's covered in this brown liquid and says, "Who am I? What am I?" Dr. Fuji, the scientist.
This scientist with the long hair.
Yeah.
Like long in the forward direction.
Yeah. Says that you're a clone. We were trying to make clones, and you are the first clone that we've successfully made. You're like Mew, but more powerful, so we called you Mewtwo. Mewtwo is like, hey, I'm just a science experiment, and it's really upset, so it destroys the lab and kills everyone. Fuji says, we created the world's most powerful Pokemon. We did it.
We succeeded.
And we succeeded.
And then dies.
Yeah. Giovanni arrives. And he says they just saw you as an experiment, but I can help you harness your true power. Mewtwo says, okay, I'm listening. It gets put into the suit of armor. Mewtwo captures wild Pokemon and fights at the gym. And Mewtwo says, okay, like, I'm stronger, but like, what is this? What is my purpose? And he says, you are a Pokemon. Your purpose is to obey humans. And Mewtwo says, no, it's not. And destroys its armor and flies out of the Team Rocket base or whatever that it's in. And says, I will rule, basically.
Yeah.
Flies back to the island.
Title card, I think.
Title card, yeah.
And then cut away to Misty, Ash, and Brock having some delicious lazy boy no chew stew.
Yeah.
When suddenly this pirate man shows up and says, "Are you Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town? Let's have a Pokemon battle." And then opening montage and
with a Don fan.
Yeah.
Ash beats him. He's being watched. Team Rocket's up on the cliff watching him, saying, whoa, powerful Pokemon. And Mewtwo's also watching him, and he says to his lady or whatever, she says, should we invite these trainers? And he says, yes. Dragonite shows up with a letter that says, hello, you are invited to New Island to battle the most powerful
Pokemon Master
on Earth. Check yes or no. And they say yes.
And then Dragonite flies away, but then gets stopped by Team Rocket, who also notices what's going on by looking at the letter. And then Dragonite flies away with the RSVP. We cut away to this kind of dock where Ash, Misty, and Brock rush in, and it's starting to rain really hard. And at the Pokemon Center, Officer Jenny is saying, this storm is really bad, and all of the ships are not to leave this port.
And you can't leave either, because if your Pokemon are injured, then I think I could do pretty good early Officer Jenny voice.
Yeah, go.
And if your Pokemon are injured, then no one's going to be able to help you, because Nurse Joy has been missing from the Pokemon Center. Yeah.
Meanwhile, and then this Russian lady comes
Miranda.
up to her right and says,
She's a pure master.
Yeah, this storm is like the
That's a good
legend
rolled R's.
in which, people died in the storm, but then legend has the tears of Pokemon will bring them back to life. But this is no legend, and no one will help you, so you will stay here.
And then a lot of the trainers are going to the island anyway. Ash and the friends are like, let's also go. But they're like, but how can we brave this storm? We don't have big Pokemon. But Team Rocket shows up in their little Viking ship and says,
he's a Pokemon trainer.
Yeah, and they give them a boat ride. And they said, I didn't know there, and Brock says, I didn't know there were still Vikings. And Ash said, I think they mostly live in Minnesota.
Yeah. And then a big wave comes and crashes over the ship, taking away Team Rocket's disguises, and it's them. And then Ash says, hey, it's you guys. And then they are about to go do their motto, but then the entire ship capsizes. Misty underwater brings out Staryu, and Staryu grabs on. Staryu grabs Brock, and then they all jet away towards New Island.
And Ash and Squirtle join them. So they show up underneath the castle.
Yeah, they kind of emerge to a calm in the storm, and they're like, what? There's nothing going on here. And they see the huge castle of New Island. And
so they swim over. There's this little pier underneath the castle, and that lady's there. And Brock says, hey, I knew I recognized that Nurse Joy poster. That's you from the letter. And she says, I don't know what you're talking about. I've always lived here and served my master. Let's go. So they go up this long staircase.
Team Rocket emerges on a wheezing under them.
Yeah, and
they all emerge into this dining hall.
We also cut to Mew in a bubble underwater, suddenly kind of waking up and looking around, and it starts flying off somewhere. So they arrive in the big dining room, and there's the other three trainers there, Nisha, Fergus, and Corey. And the woman says, all right, everybody, time to meet the greatest Pokemon master in the world, who is also the strongest Pokemon in the world, and it's Mewtwo. And Mewtwo shows off his power a lot. The Pokemon try to attack him. He blocks basically everybody. He reflects everyone's attack, and he says, I don't need you anymore, to the Nurse Joy. Her headdress falls off as she falls to the ground, being caught by Brock, and it's obviously Nurse Joy, and she's like, how did I get there? Mewtwo says, humans are weak and horrible. Pokemon are your slaves. your Pokemon I can't even trust because they let themselves be slaves.
Pikachu jumps out of Ash's arms and says, Pika, 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 I'm this human's friend. Mewtwo says, you say you are this human's friend? Pathetic.
Yeah.
And then the other trainer tries to use his Rhyhorn and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
Mewtwo keeps flexing, basically.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Team Rocket has decided that they're going to enter through the sewers, and they almost saw Mew, but they didn't. They're entering through the sewers, and they come across this room with that is the old lab that Mewtwo reconstructed, and they see Pokemon sleeping in the giant tubes. Jesse accidentally turns on the computer, which plays back a recorded message from Dr. Fuji, which was obviously what he was saying at the beginning of the movie, where he explains that they created Mewtwo from Mew to make a clone, and then it destroyed the lab. Meowth gets grabbed by the machine, they take some hairs from him, and they create a second Meowth.
And then we cut back to Ash says, I'll beat you. And then Mewtwo says, is that a challenge? And he says, you bet it is. And then he opens this giant stadium door and then leads them all out to the stadium.
And brings the clone Pokemon up from the lab. So they exit out of their tubes.
Right. So he says, like other trainers, I started with
like
Charmander.
all trainers.
Yeah, all
Charmander, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur.
Yeah.
But mine are better. So Mewtwo says, okay, let's battle these guys versus the originals and see who's stronger.
So he's got this clone Blastoise, Venusaur, and Charizard.
So Shellshocker gets beat, Venusaur gets beat, both in one hit.
Brute
Root, sorry. Shellshocker and Brute Root get beat both in one hit. Ash says...
Charizard, use your speed, not your power.
Yeah, so they go on a little bit longer, but Charizard also gets beat.
And then Mewtwo says, I will take my prize of victory, your Pokemon.
So all the black eye Pokeballs are catching all the Pokemon. Ash eventually says, let's put them inside the Pokeballs, but that doesn't work. It catches the Pokeballs. Pikachu is running up the spiral ramp thing, and trying to fight off the Pokeballs. Ash is running after him. Eventually
Pikachu falls off the staircase. Ash jumps off and grabs Pikachu in his arms.
No,
but
he doesn't.
The Pokemon almost reaches Pikachu, and then the ball
catches Pikachu and he catches
first.
the ball.
Yeah, he catches the ball.
And follows it down into the shaft, and he says, "You'll never take Pikachu."
Yeah. So he meanwhile, we cut back down to Team Rocket, who is noticing all of these new Pokemon coming in through the conveyor belt, which are in these little Millennium Eye Pokeballs. And so they're like, who's that Pokemon? It's Alakazam. Yeah. It's not Alakazam.
It's a Scyther.
Who's that Pokemon?
Yeah.
And then they see Ash coming in through the conveyor belt.
Grabbing the Pikachu's Pokeball.
Yeah. And he tears Pikachu's Pokeball away from all of the claws of the machine, and Pikachu re-emerges and says, yeah!
Pikachu!
Yeah.
And they hug, and then all the other Pokemon re-emerge as well.
Yeah, but they are still able to take the data and create a clone Pikachu.
And all the clones are also emerging from their tubes of all of the Pokemon.
Send in the clones!
Yeah. So...
Cut it back to Mewtwo up on the stadium with the trainers, Nurse Joy, Misty, and Brock. And he says, I will spare your lives for now. And opens the doors of the stadium, which lead to like a storm and a cliff. And
then Ash emerges, or all the other Pokemon emerge, right?
The clone Pokemon like assemble around Mewtwo. And he says, look at my powerful Pokemon. And then Ash also emerges out of the shadows and says, you can't do this. I won't let you. With all of the original Pokemon.
Walking behind him in a weird 3D thing.
And so Ash runs in to attempt to punch Mewtwo in the face.
He says, you're mine!
And then,
doesn't work. He tries again.
Yeah. And then gets caught by Mewtwo's psychic power.
And gets shoved back onto the edge of the...
Thrown into the sky,
into the stadium.
No, he gets thrown into the sky, but gets stopped by a pink bubble. And
Mewtwo says, what?
And then suddenly, it's Mew. Mew comes out of the sky and has saved Ash, pops the pink bubble, which makes Ash drop onto the roof. And then Mew comes down, and Mewtwo says...
it's you, basically.
Yeah, and basically says, you may have been the most powerful, but I was created and more powerful than you, and I will show you. And so...
And Meowth translates that Mew says, no, a real Pokemon strength comes from the heart.
Yeah.
And Mewtwo says, we don't even need our powers to defeat you. We'll do this mano a mano.
Yeah. And so somehow uses his psychic abilities to prevent Pokemon from using moves.
in heavy quotes.
In heavy air quotes, yeah.
It says Mewtwo blocking all the Pokemon's special moves, and they do their mano-a-mano wrestling.
Right. So all of the Pokemon start fighting their clones just using like slaps and bites and wrestling each other rather than using like water guns and stuff.
Ash eventually makes it down back to Brock, Misty, and Nurse Joy, and they all talk about how horrible this kind of fighting is.
So Pokemon weren't meant to fight. Not like this.
And they say they'll never give up. Brock says they're gonna fight to the death. They use the D word again.
Yeah, and all through this time, this song "Brother, My Brother" is playing.
Yeah, it's very of the time. Ash says someone has to do something. Meowth is chatting with his clone. They almost attack each other, but then they don't. And then Meowth says, the same air, the same sky. Maybe if we started looking at what was the same rather than what's different, well who knows?
And all of the Pokemon are now like collapsed on each other, like tired from all of the fighting,
including the
Ash.
Pikachu's slapping each other.
Yeah, Pikachu is
slapped
by Pikachu 2 many times. Pikachu will not fight back against
and
Pikachu 2. Yeah, and they're both crying.
And Ash says, we have to do something. So he runs in the middle of the two blasts of energy from Mewtwo and Mew. And Ash lies on the ground, and he slowly turns to stone. Pikachu comes up and says, Pika-Pi, and starts shaking him.
Pikachu.
And electric shocks him over and over again. And Pikachu begins to cry. And the other Pokemon in the stadium also begin to cry. All of them, even the clone Pokemon. And all the tears kind of come to Ash, and they revive him. And
it's not quite enough, but at the last moment, one teardrop comes down from Pikachu's eyes
glittering,
and goes to Ash and brings him back to life.
Yeah, and Mewtwo says, I see. It doesn't matter who's more powerful. Everyone has a value. The circumstances of one's birth is irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. And it says, I'm going to leave.
He flies away with all of the clone Pokemon flying through the sky and says, I will return, or I will do something when I have learned what your heart knows so well. And,
perhaps for you, these events are best forgotten.
And suddenly, Ash, Misty, and Brock.
Glow on the ground, and everyone is like, what? And then Ash, Misty, and Brock are back at the pier.
Pokemon, kind of port.
Miranda and Officer Jenny are saying, no one can go out in the storm. Don't do that to your Pokemon.
And then Nurse Joy comes out and says, and comes out from behind.
The Pokemon Health Center.
The Pokemon Health Center is open for anybody who needs help.
Yeah. And Ash, Misty, and Brock are like, wow.
Why are we even here? And Misty says, well, I guess we're here just because we're here.
And Ash is like, awesome.
And then they go out of the pier because they realized, it's a miracle. The storm's ending. And they look out onto the sky after the clouds are parting, and Ash spies.
Ash sees Mew. And as Mew is flying through the air, Brock and Misty look, and they say, we don't see anything.
And Ash says, the day that I left on my journey, I saw a really rare Pokemon. And I think just now I saw another one.
And Misty says, maybe it was your imagination. And Brock says, maybe not. And Ash says, maybe we'll see. And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, and then Team Rocket is on New Island saying, we're on vacation. And then they celebrate being alive.
And then we have the credits. Yeah. All right. So,
where was Pokemon the first movie ranked in our original list?
In our original list, Pokemon the first movie was the second movie on both of our lists. Number 2. It's a good movie. I remember we watched it and we're like, because we both watched it kind of with a little bit, I think, of hesitation the first time, knowing that, there's a lot of nostalgia goggles with this movie. We'll have to see how it holds up, and we were both really impressed. It's beautifully drawn. The characters are very well characterized. It's really kind of flows into itself.
I think one of the first things I noticed when I watched this movie again the first time, being primed to say that it wasn't very good, because a lot of propaganda from the non-Pokemon fan world likes to say that, these kids watching this movie are stupid or something that's a
like
bad
real
movie.
movie reviewers.
Right, yeah. So I was primed back in
Yeah.
2015 to think this movie was not as good as I remembered it from my
Same here.
childhood, because I hadn't watched it since then. And I was very, very impressed by the art and how lovingly it was drawn. And clearly they were not planning on having more Pokemon movies after this.
Yeah, this was the Pokemon movie.
Right, so because this is the first movie, and so it, you know, you can really see when you compare this to other movies that it has better 3D effects, better everything than
even movies that were made years and years later. The 3D effects way better integrated. We talked about how bad they were in the Celebi movie, and that's, you know, a number of years later, not that many years later, but like the quality and the 3D integration is like. And really just dramatic.
The level of the art and the animation, there's just a lot of very iconic shots, and it was very well put together, is how I felt when I first watched this movie the first time.
Yeah.
And so we ranked it number two
on both of our lists.
So
watching it again, I again was really impressed with it. It's a great movie. It was interesting watching it so soon after, well, not that soon, but it feels soon since we're watching a movie almost every day.
Yeah.
After watching the 3D Mewtwo movie, because you can kind of see what they changed. There's a few lines that they changed. We actually learned that apparently Meowth's new line in the 3D remake is closer to the original Japanese than the whole...
the same oi?
Yeah.
Which is an anti-racism message, like kind of intended for American audiences, which maybe wouldn't like be as topical for a Japanese audience.
Yeah, homogenous society.
Right.
But yeah, so some of the lines that they changed were actually more, you know, relevant to the original, which is interesting. They also included in the new movie the scene in the beginning where they go to the ruins to try to find Mew, which is not in the Pokemon TV version.
Not in the theatrical release of the original Pokemon, the first movie.
And not in the version that we watched, so which I think is okay, because I don't remember seeing that scene as a kid. So,
no.
Yeah, they... I think there are a couple of things that the remake actually does stronger now that we've seen this again. I think it spends more time with Mewtwo at the beginning to kind of see his emotional journey to where he is. I think there are some things that the original does better, like the message of, you know, the kind of core message of the movie. I think is communicated a little better in the original.
Yeah, I think a lot of things kind of like follow better in the original movie. I think that they had the kind of Miranda talking about the prophecy of the Pokemon at the start,
which was really helpful.
Noticeably missing in the 3D version.
Yeah.
And kind of foreshadowed that Pokemon were going to cry later in the movie in a way that makes it less jarring.
Yeah. It's also a little snappier, I think.
Right.
Root and
Shell Shocker
go down a lot quicker in this movie. They spend a lot more time with the battling, I think, in the 3D movie.
And a thing that you really see in the in the original Pokemon, the first movie, Pikachu 2 slaps Pikachu for like 3 times as long, it feels like. And that's kind of like a statement on the first movie as a whole, the original. It's snappy when it needs to be, but it draws things out when it feels like it needs to as well. And I think that really made some parts stick out a lot more, because Pikachu is absolutely refusing to fight back against Pikachu 2, getting slapped over and over and over again. And there's all these close-up scenes. You know, like you see Misty and Brock and Nurse Joy all horrified at the battle. There's a lot of, you know, emotion, and, you know, it seems to land a little bit better for me than the new 3D movie, where the camera seemed a little bit more pulled back, and I don't know.
Yeah. The other thing I noticed is that in the 3D movie, there's a lot, the castle that Mewtwo builds is a lot more fancier.
Yeah.
A lot fancier. Yeah. And a lot more like gothic and ornate than the one in the original movie, which I imagine they did in order to kind of make it live up to our memories of watching the first movie when we were little.
And they did a good job.
And they did a good job, because I didn't realize that the original one didn't even have a DNA staircase. It just had this kind of very basic brown ramp, swirling ramp. The doors were like very simple. They were big, but they were very simple. So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, like as much as we say that the art in the original movie is nice, some of it does look a little plain when compared to the like bells and whistles that they stick in the 3D movie. That being said, it's still kind of more about the shots and the, you know, things when it counted.
Yeah, the 2D animation is really striking and beautiful, and it's clear they paid a lot of attention to detail in this movie.
Yeah.
So ranking it, can I just say what we both did?
Sure.
We both ranked this movie after some discussion between Destiny Deoxys and the Entei movie. So it's the third movie on the list now. It moved below Destiny Deoxys, which it was above before. I don't know. I mean, it's a great movie. I think this time watching it around, I did notice a couple of questions that I had about the dialogue. Like Mewtwo says that he says at the beginning, "I won't spare your Pokemon because they're just as bad as you." And then he says, "Your Pokemon will stay with me safely on this island later." And I'm like, wait.
There's like some weird continuity issues.
Yeah, and he says, "You'll be spared for now." And I'm like, why? I don't like, there's a couple things that kind of raise a couple eyebrows for me. They also do, Pikachu does faint a Golem in the beginning with an electric attack. Team Rocket does call Scyther and Alakazam. Those are minor things.
Honestly,
but, I mean, come on, guys.
Mewtwo saying, "I will cancel out your Pokemon's special abilities with my psychic powers" was one of the most like head scratching moments, because I think that I don't remember hearing that the first time I watched this movie, and it makes so little sense in the context of maybe like the rest of the Pokemon like continuity in some ways. Like it's like, is bite not a move? Is scratch not a move? Yeah, they're biting
each other, and I'm like, what's a move? What does a move mean?
What is a move?
This just reminds me of the XY anime where Froakie or Frogadier would use the Frubbles.
Oh yeah.
And then Clement would always say, "It's not a move."
Yeah, the Frubbles. It's not a move, so it doesn't count.
What does that mean?
So I think that was like a layer of explanation that they maybe, I don't know if it made the continuity better or worse back in the day, because like, sure, somebody would have raised eyebrows as to like, oh, why aren't they using Hydro Pump or something like that? And they'd be like, oh, the psychic power canceled out their special abilities. But like, it raises more questions about what exactly a move is.
I mean, it's really more for the kind of like abstract effect of seeing the Pokemon literally like punching each other,
exactly,
which you don't typically see.
They could have done that anyway without having to go into the explanation, which is what they did in the Mewtwo 3D movie. And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Some might then say...
It stuck out more in this movie as an issue, I think, is the best way to put it. So I think those kind of minor things knock it down a little bit for me, because they take you out of the movie when you're watching it. Because you're suddenly questioning what's the basis of what's going on. That being said, it's still a great movie. It does a great job at what it's trying to do. It's beautifully drawn.
Yeah, I think Pokemon, the first movie, it's the quality of the delivery that's the main thing that has it going for it. It's not a complicated plot. It's very kind of operatic in some ways. But it's that nature that makes it strong. You see Mewtwo's little theme play every single time Mewtwo does anything. The da 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 da, and then the Mew theme play whenever Mew's on screen hiding behind Team Rocket. Da da da. Like and then like kind of doing that, and so it really has that kind of Star Wars effect, where you every time Darth Vader's on screen, you expect the Darth Vader theme, and you get that, and it, for some reason I seem to remember a lot of that not happening quite as cleanly in the Pokemon 3D, the Mewtwo 3D movie, and it's really this quality of production, both in the art and the music and everything, that makes this not just in our minds this very iconic movie, but is trying to make itself an iconic movie as you watch it.
And they kind of largely succeeded. I would say.
Obviously. But as Gigi says, there are things that kind of make it, and that's why when it fails execution wise, it's the much more noticeable, because it's not going to win on like plot twists or like on plot drama or something.
Because almost in an I Choose You way, it's a little more abstracted, so when they take you out of that abstraction, it feels a little jarring.
So I agreed to put it just under Destiny Deoxys. Watching both of them again, Destiny Deoxys feels like a classic as well. I didn't give it enough credit the last time I did this list, and said, oh, it's not quite as well executed, which is not correct. Pokemon the first movie has many execution errors. Destiny Deoxys has a lot of moments that are very well executed and very iconic, and really make it a great blockbuster movie. And I think for all of the execution reasons, I also have to put it above the Entei movie, because as much as I like the Entei movie, it doesn't have that whole everything coming together, really satisfying feeling that Pokemon the first movie will give you.
And it's also, again, up here, another question I'm asking myself, as I said before, is what movie would I rather watch on any given day? And I would rather watch this than the Entei movie on any given day, again, just because of the kind of focused nature of the Entei movie. But, it has its kind of moments of that Deoxys and the Power of Us don't have.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
So those were our 3 movies.
We have 1 movie left. Now, what movie could be we have ranked at number 1 above Pokemon the first movie, above the Entei movie, above the Lucario movie, 3 movies that are extremely popular among fans.
Yeah.
Above these extremely popular, famous classic movies, what movie could possibly be the reigning champion? And that movie is Pokemon Jirachi
the Wishmaker.
Yeah. It's not the Wishmaker. I think
Jirachi
it's just Jirachi Wishmaker.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was our number 1. We felt very strongly about it, I think, at the time.
Yeah, it was no difference across either of our lists. We were really into
it. So we're going to be rewatching that tonight. And probably not tomorrow, but at some point soon, we will record an episode where we talk about the Jirachi movie, see if any of these movies have knocked it down. I'm especially curious about The Power of Us, since that is the only new movie up at the top of this list.
Yeah. Or even Destiny Deoxys, which, was
also
there before, but...
that's the only competition for number 1. So
right.
Number 1 is either going to be The Power of Us or Jirachi Wishmaker.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. I really don't know what it'll be because I haven't seen this movie in a while.
I haven't seen this movie in a while too. Like, despite it being number 1, I've actually watched Destiny Deoxys more times.
Yeah. So we'll have to see. So watch along if you want to.
Thank you for listening.
We will also kind of go more generally discuss the list.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about maybe the tiers, see if we have any last minute changes before we record the episode in terms of the
Mewtwo
tiers.
3D.
Yeah, I have to whatever. I don't want to think about it. But I'm gonna have to. So we'll have a great, exciting last episode, and then we might do a bonus episode where we talk about the credits and maybe the openings and some other fun stuff. So
yeah. I feel like a good way to do the bonus episode would be if we actually played some songs and all that stuff. We'll see if we can do that. It'll be a fun one.
Or play a little bit.
So stay tuned for the thrilling finale.
The thrilling conclusion of this Pikachu Project.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to the Pikachu Project. I've been Gigi.
And I'm Walex.
And stay safe, wash your hands, and we will all get through this together. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.